sisters who were already, I'm pretty sure, sexually active. I know my dad had caught a couple of guys, teenage guys. These guys all thought they were tough. They walked around pit bull dogs. And it was very popular for these guys to carry buck knives on their side, these big folding knives, locking folding knives. They were badasses. But I remember this one time, my dad, he wasn't the type to be, to allow that kind of hocus hanky panky going on in his house. And two-bedroom house, and I remember my dad, because I had a bedroom next to my sister's. They had the master bedroom upstairs, and I had a smaller bedroom. And I just heard just the pounding of him running up the stairs and taking these two guys out, throwing them literally down the stairs. I mean, it sounded like he was literally picking them up and throwing them down the stairs. Didn't care if he broke their necks. And they yelled at him, and I don't think they were going to try that again. But anyhow, that age, my one sister was probably 15 and the other one 16, 17, about like that. And so I know that was a period I was sexually active, and around that age it started. But anyhow, so before these ladies, these young ladies I was smitten with, it was a while. In Europe, I don't remember any girls coming into my life that I was in love with, because I lived, like I've talked about before, I lived in England when I was about 8 to 9, and then I lived in Malta for a period, and I lived in Ireland for a period, and then we came back to the States about 1969. But so before that, it was when I lived in Florida, I guess. I lived in Inglewood, which is a suburb of Sarasota, and we were right on the ocean there, and 50 palm trees in our front yard. We had a little lagoon type thing, like something out of Gilligan's Island, For a 5-year-old, it was just awesome. But they lived there for a while, and I remember Patty, I think she lived right next door, and she used to come over, and she'd bring her purse, and she used to keep cheese in her purse. And for whatever reason, I was smitten with Patty. I guess I just thought she was cute. I don't know, she might have been 6 or 7, so she was the older woman in that case, but I know I was 5. And so that didn't last long. My parents decided to move back to California, because we had previously lived there. I was born in North Hollywood, LA area, and lived in Manhattan Beach. My maternal grandmother was living in Maywood, East LA, and she was a landlord down there. My grandpa, I never got to meet him. He died very young when my mother was 14. The Dalmatian immigrants. But I lived there for a brief period, and Manhattan Beach, my dad built his first sailboat there in the garage, a small sailboat he sold. That was before we moved to Inglewood, and that was where I lived when JFK was assassinated. I was 5, attending kindergarten at that age. I remember it all very well. But we moved back to Santa Cruz, and I know that in Santa Cruz, I was smitten with Margaret. Again, just a case of puppy love. We're talking about 7 or 8 years old. And Margaret was a very adorable, cute girl, and she used to swing on the monkey bars upside down in her dress, and it was kind of one of these things where she was letting the boys see her panties. I mean, imagine that. I mean, 8 years old. Yeah, I guess it was 8. I was in probably 2nd grade, Branciforte Elementary, and before that it was Galt Elementary. I think that I don't know if they went past kindergarten, first grade there at Galt, but I know it was Branciforte I was going to when I was smitten with Margaret. But again, that didn't last because my dad decided to move the family to. That's right before we moved to England. He was talking about moving the family to United States Virgin Islands, but it's predominantly blacks there, and my dad felt uncomfortable that they were actually kind of racist, and he didn't want to be in that environment. So he decided on the town of Ryde in the Isle of Wight for whatever reason. He set the family up there, and we bought an old taxi. There was these old black taxis everywhere with these little the signal arms would swing out, and real funky looking thing. But he ended up buying a junk sailboat, fixer-upper, 25-foot sailboat, Solstice. I don't know if he named it or if he kept the name that was given it, but he and I fixed it up. So I took some time off school. I did go to school part-time there in Ryde. Ryde spelled with a Y. And anyhow, that's about as far back as my love for the female of the species goes. And I can tell you one thing I've learned in life is that there's a good reason why men should be deferent toward women. And this whole women and children thing, first, it has basis, it has justification. And they're very special creatures. And the older I get, to think, all the times I misspoke to a woman or touched her in any kind of way that was unbecoming of a man. To touch a woman is just, it's repugnant to me. I'm so far removed, and I'm so glad I'm so far removed from that. It's such a beautiful thing. I watch a lot of these crime shows, and I think, what in the hell? All these people, the beloved killing the other. Sometimes it's the women killing the guy, and they're having him killed, and a husband, or their significant other, whatever. Because in my mind, marriage means very little on paper. It's in the sight of God. It's, if a man asks a woman to marry her and she agrees to it, for me, that's enough. That God says, okay, that's good enough. I don't need a piece of paper. But, with all this paperwork BS, in the eyes of the law and in the eyes of man, and it's like, you know what? I don't care. I mean, financially, I say, let her have everything. It was like that with my wife when she wanted to call it quits, and I ended up getting custody of my daughters and being a single dad, and I couldn't see suing her for child support. I just could, as a man, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't. Just could not do it. But I was thinking, about this whole prenup thing. I think, you know what? It ought to be the norm that if you're going to get married on paper, it doesn't matter what the financial situation is for the individual. I think that it should be the norm that absolutely, that it'd be strange, it'd be odd, it'd be peculiar, it'd be suspicious if somebody said, I don't want to sign a prenup. No, it's a given. That's the way it is. And that's how I feel. I think a lot different than the people of this world, and I'm very glad that I think a lot different than the people of this world. God Almighty, I just watched a Dateline with, about this idiot freak, this Charles Manson. All these women that he coerced and under his spell. It blows my mind. It's sickening. And, what did he do to these women? He convinced them to be his murderers, little punk, pissant, freak, psychopath. And the way he talks, it's like he almost sounds like he's making some sense in law. Oh, he's anti-establishment, all this crap. I think, well, he sounds like me. I'm anti-establishment. But then you think of this guy's a psychopathic freak murderer. He's filled with hate, irrational, unsubstantiated hate, just willy-nilly hate for white people. And he's just a punk pissant freak. I mean, I'm sorry, God, forgive me. I mean, you love Charles Manson. He's your property. But, I mean, give me a break. I mean, while I don't believe in capital punishment, I do believe in Moses. And what Moses, I'd plead the Moses. If you catch some guy in the act of raping a woman or and pedophilia. There's certain things where, rage takes over, and you can't be held responsible for grabbing a guy by the throat and breaking his neck. Okay, that's the man I am, and I'm glad to be that man. But once you do catch the culprit, if he survives and he doesn't, meet his fate like, Moses laid on the mean slave driver. He was outraged, incensed, overtaken with rage over that incident. But there's some bad actors out there. It just sickens me. And then I hear about all these incidents of so often it's women that are trying to buy love, and these guys, online, and they're trying to coerce money out of women and all this. And it's like, God, they're so repugnant. I feel like a different, I'm ashamed to be of the same species as these guys. I got to tell you straight up. Shameful. Shame just to be of the same gender. These guys repulse me. And I just want to run, not walk, away from being an iota like these clowns. They're freaks, man. And it really hurts. It's just very saddening. And I think, how common it is that men feel compelled to pay for sex. And so this, hiring an escort or something I never got into. But I mean, you got all these massage parlors there, and that's a huge temptation for guys. And we all know a lot of that's, paying for sex in one form or another. Right or wrong, it's like they say, the world's oldest profession. So for whatever reason, men feel they need a woman. They really don't. We know that God's given them the wherewithal to relieve themselves if they really need it, which, no man, in all honesty, really ever needs sex. That's just a fact. That God will take care of it in a nocturnal emission if it's really necessary for your biological well-being. I mean, there's debates that go on. People say, oh, no. Men need to ejaculate. They need to have sex to be healthy and all this. But believe me, professional doctors in the know disagree. The experts disagree. So there's no firm consensus on that issue that men can, if they have the self-control, can do it. I'm not sitting here on a high horse. Believe me, I've had my struggle just like every other man. And I like to quote scripture. Remember that in our weakness, God's strength is perfected. And if you turn to him and you fall on your face a million times, he'll pick you up and dust you off if you let him, and get you on the right path again, pull you out of the rut. But at some point, you got to get sick and tired of being sick and tired. You're gonna. It's just where he leads you. You get sick and tired of being delusional that there's any hope of ever being self-satisfied. That's something my wife accused me of once, and it really bugged me, that she thought that. But it happens even in marriages that a lot of guys feel, well, I still got to be lustful and got to look at, for lack of a better term, it's pornographic images typically involving naked ladies, right? Look, this is the kind of stuff they teach guys. I mean, it's almost, lost cause for men. Because in college and universities, they teach men, this is it. The inference being that it's for your health, guys. That, even if you have a significant other, the likelihood that you're going to get all you want is not good. So, they teach you very explicitly how to satisfy yourself. Let's put it that way. And they show the women the same thing. And I'm not going to speak to the biological needs of a woman, but I know that they've, there's experts that can cite health reasons for a woman to I don't want to talk anymore about this. I really don't. But you get the gist. This is stuff they're teaching in colleges and universities. So the educated people in society accept this as very normal. That but really it's weird. Okay, and God's got to think it's kind of weird. It's kind of little, the fantasy thing, and it's just so. But anyhow, the point is there's no such thing as self-satisfaction, guys. I can tell you that from really trying. Okay, like I said, right now I feel like a virgin all over again with the puppy love I'm feeling toward a certain woman locally, And I'm never going to use her last name, just so she knows, if in the remote chance she's listening. I'm never, but I mean, her first name, is okay, because there's a lot of women with that same first name. So only very few people, and they should be kind of hush hush about it if they respect her privacy, should divulge who I'm talking about. But I think she knows, and her name is Lauren, and I'm smitten with this woman, and it's really a case of puppy love. So I've gone so long without a woman to be intimate with in my life, 15 years, that it's just like I was a virgin all over again, because that was the age that I had an incident. It happened in Santa Cruz with a couple of buddies. We were down at the boardwalk. If anybody knows Santa Cruz, they'll know, the boardwalk, this year-round fair